What's up in War Eagle, everybody? It's your guy, Ike Jones. We are here inside the Auburn Express talking a little bit about Auburn football going into week 2 versus Cal. The question today is, has Payton Thorne turned the corner? We all had an opportunity to take a look at what happened in the game Saturday. Payton Thorne had great statistics, but a lot of people are optimistic about what this means about the future of the offense under Payton Thorne this season. And the question is, has he turned the corner? Is he becoming the quarterback that people think that he can be in order to lead an offense that's going to be prolific? When you look at it by the numbers, Payton Thorne on Saturday was 13 of 21 for 61.9%, 322 total passing yards, 15.3 yards per attempt with 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. PFF has him rated at 92.9, the highest rated PFF quarterback ranking for any quarterback in the country on Saturday. So, is this the beginning of a new era for Payton Thorne? Well, the numbers suggest this is kind of what you should have expected from Payton Thorne. When you look at it, last year was an aberration. Like, really, if you kind of look at Payton Thorne's numbers, last year was just not what you typically would expect from Payton Thorne. Just let's even look at it in a very granular way. Game 1 last season, Payton Thorne threw for 58.8% on just 10 of 17 passes. That's below his career average, which is at 60.8%, right? So slightly below what he's used to throwing. But I would argue if he had thrown more times last season, you likely would have seen a better result out of Payton Thorne. And this is really what we've been saying and what Coach Freeze has been saying and what Payton Thorne has been saying all offseason. You have to give him more opportunities in order to get the types of results that you want to get out of him in the passing game. 17 attempts just isn't going to get it for Payton Thorne to deliver what you need to get from him as far as passing yards or even passing percentage. But look, 61.9% on Saturday, that's just north of what he averages as a career passer at 60.8. Even if you take his adjusted completion percentage at 71.4 on Saturday, that's around what his career average is for adjusted completion percentage, right? So even if you factor in all of the drops or all of these other things, he is a career 70.9% completion guy adjusted. So he was, yes, a little bit better on Saturday than what you would have seen career-wise against inferior competition. This week is going to be the test because this week is going to be the P5 one, and that's where Payton Thorne struggled early in the season last year, was against Power 5 competition. Now, I will say this, and I've been championing this idea, Payton Thorne plays better at home traditionally than he does on the road. So I do anticipate Payton Thorne having another good season, or excuse me, another good game on Saturday versus this Cal defense that, if we're being honest and taking a look at it, played a poor first half versus UC Davis. UC Davis was able to get what they wanted both on the ground and via the air in the first half of that game. Now, Cal turned the corner in the second half of that game, shut out UC Davis. I think they had like 3 takeaways, 3 or 4 interceptions in the second half of that game alone. So the Cal defense definitely got its bearings, but they've got some injury questions, and we'll get more into the Cal game specifically later in the week. They have some questions as far as injuries are concerned with that offense and whether or not they're going to have all of their arsenal available for them to be able to come into Jordan-Hare Stadium. But specifically looking at the defense, I think there's a distinct advantage right now for Auburn in terms of the offensive play caller is going to be a different person than it was last year when Auburn walked into Cal Memorial Stadium last year. So Cal doesn't have as much film to be able to look at. They can look at traditionally what Payton Thorne has done in his career and maybe some characteristics of what he does in that regard. They can look maybe at what Coach Hugh Freeze does in his career traditionally out of the RPO set. But what they can't find film on is these receivers. What they can't find film on is the tendencies of Derek Nix as a play caller. So if he's going to be actively involved in the game planning and play calling, there's nothing really for Cal to be able to look at to try to figure out how to attack what Auburn is going to do. So they're just going to have to pin their ears back and figure out how to put pressure on this quarterback And the offensive line performed admirably on Saturday, albeit again versus Alabama A&M. We're not going to jump out of the window and pretend as if Auburn did some heroic thing to be able to put up 73 points versus Alabama A&M. But what they did is take care of business the way that you would expect for a Power 5 team to do versus FCS competition. Now, again, the question that we're asking today is, has Payton Thorne turned the corner? Is he going to become some Heisman contending quarterback, or is he going to raise his floor to be in the top half of the conference? The numbers would suggest that if he stays on the trend of what he has been doing career-wise, he will be able to elevate into that 3,000-yard range because he has the weapons available to him. He's got the offense now and mentality from an offensive play calling standpoint that wants to go out there and put up a bunch of points, wants to spread it around to a bunch of receivers, and wants to and he has a run game that they can rely on in case they're not able to block it up properly against a lot of the blitzes. Okay, great. We'll hand the ball off and we'll see if we can get these people movers over here, opening up lanes for what I consider to be one of the deepest running back rooms in the country, with Jarquez Hunter very slept on, even though he has been, preseason all SEC type of things. I think Jarquez Hunter is still a guy that people forget how dangerous he is, and definitely slept on Damari Alston and an emerging Jeremiah Cobb there in that backfield. If we can get the run game going, Auburn would say themselves, if we can get the run game going, then it makes it very difficult for teams to figure out how to stop us. Now, Coach Hugh Freeze did say in his press conference that he expects for Cal to do what they've done traditionally. And that is, well, last year, if you look at the tape, they dared Auburn to throw the football. And Auburn just wasn't able to win enough of those one-on-ones last year. So if Auburn's able to do better in the one-on-one scenarios, which they have the receivers that can do that. We did a little watch the film session where we looked at some of the stuff that was happening. When Cam Coleman got his one-on-one opportunities, he was eating that stuff up. When Keandre Lambert-Smith got his one-on-one opportunities, he was routinely able to get open. So you've got receivers that can win one-on-one. Rivaldo Fairweather, though he didn't have a great game, he's able to get open in one-on-one opportunities. Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, we can go down the line of guys who can win one-on-one battles. The question is, are they going to be able to do it against a better secondary? But I have to go back to what I watched on film versus UC Davis with Cal and say, there's opportunities there for Auburn to be able to win some of those one-on-one battles, right? Because Cal is going to try to dare you. They feel like they have a good enough secondary, which, let's be clear, Cal does have good secondary players to be able to compete one-on-one. But when you're starting to have these guys that you line up with in the Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Perry Thompson, and that ilk of receiver, it makes it a little bit more of a difficult proposition to say, hey, go win against this guy when he can go win jump balls against your guys. And the UC Davis receivers, they were doing that. They were getting open quite often. It wasn't until the second half of the game where really UC Davis, in my opinion, was trying to get a little too greedy on some of their stuff. They were 7-step drops out of freaking shotgun sometimes, trying to go for home run shots as opposed to taking some of the underneath stuff that they were being given, and that the run game wasn't working as effectively in the second half. But I believe that Auburn versus this Cal defense will have an opportunity to allow Payton Thorne to continue to push the ball down the field. And if they can effectively push the ball down the field this Saturday versus Cal, I expect for 100-yard rushing performance from one of the running backs. We'll go ahead and take that facts or not question off of the table. I think that that's going to happen if Auburn can continue to push the ball down the field against Cal. I think that Cal is going to be able to compete a little bit better down the field, so you might not see guys running wide open. And that's where Payton Thorne is really going to have to show, has he made the progression? Can he throw the ball into a little bit tighter windows this time where guys aren't going to be running wide open, where guys aren't going to have uncontested catches? Can those young receivers be able to show up in the moments where they have to go and make contested catches now? Can they go and show up in moments where the defense is going to show you something pre and post snap that might be a little different? And are you and Payton Thorne on the same page as far as what you're seeing pre and post snap and how you want to run your routes? Those things are going to be important. However, here's the thing that gives me a little bit of confidence about Payton Thorne in this one. Game one, there was no real game plan. They weren't game planning for a defense. They were out there running base stuff, which Payton Thorne did a really good job of being able to understand what his keys were and what to do in the RPO game and where to go with the football for the most part throughout the game, even having some full field reads that he was doing out there. But when they have a specific game plan that says this is how we want to attack this particular player, this particular front in which they're when they roll out here, in an even front, or if they're going to put the bear front, like the coach Freeze says, it's usually going to be an even front, meaning a 4-man front, or if they go bear with that 5th man up front. How are we going to attack in those specific scenarios? When we get into the Cal film later this week, I'll show some stuff that I think UC Davis was able to do in certain scenarios to be able to defeat what Cal was trying to do up front. And I think that Auburn has the weapons to be able to go and do that. The question is, how accurate can Payton Thorne be? Because in the first half of that game, the UC Davis quarterback was pretty accurate. Now, when you look at his numbers career-wise, he's a fairly average completion guy, but he turns the ball over way too much. And that showed itself in the second half of games. And this is where Coach Freeze talks about how you have to have talent, because over the process of the game, the talent will start to even its way out. Do you have the talent to be able to compete for 4 quarters, not make a splash play here, make a splash play there, and make it interesting? But over the process of 4 quarters, are you able to have your talent continue to come up and make plays for you in scenarios? The question, we're going to learn a lot about this Auburn team this weekend. I'm not saying that Cal is the most electrifying offense in the world. They're not. I'm not saying Cal is the most lockdown defense in the world. They're not. But they are going to be formidable as far as the level of athletes they're going to put out there. They just might not have the depth. And is Auburn's depth, though youth, going to shine through this weekend and allow Payton Thorne specifically to be able to have time to get through his reads, through his progressions? And can he be accurate enough? There were a couple of instances where Payton Thorne threw some stuff where, hey, man, if that's a better DB out there, that might be going the opposite direction. Can he do that this Saturday against a team that's going to have some better athletes and a team that has really hung their hat on being able to generate takeaways, right? Can Auburn avoid the takeaway bug, specifically the quarterback being able to avoid throwing interceptions in this game? The 2 late fumbles, kind of fluky plays there for Auburn. Ball security going to be super important, but I specifically want to look at how Payton Thorne is able to handle what they're going to bring as far as their pressure fronts. They're going to do a lot of simulated pressure, and how accurate is he going to be into those windows that are going to inevitably not be as open as they were in this first game versus Alabama A&M. That is the question for Payton Thorne. We will get the answer to that question in just a few days as they take on Cal. Hopefully you enjoy this, but I want to hear from you guys right down there in the comment section. How do you feel like Payton Thorne's going to perform this Saturday versus the Cal defense? Did you get a chance to watch the Cal game? What are your thoughts? Put those right down there in the comment section. Definitely want to hear that. Make sure you like this video before you get out of here. If you're listening to this on podcast, go ahead and share that content. Give us a 5-star review out there on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. We definitely appreciate that as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're right here on YouTube, and make sure if you're not a member, go ahead and join, because we got a lot of great film review happening right now on the War Report channel. But that's it, man. I'm out of here. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.